Hi everybody, this is the intro to my new book, The New Mythologies. The intro really lays the groundwork for the journey ahead, and it really gives a good overview of the entire range of topics that are within the book. So if you're someone who normally doesn't read the introduction in a book, I would recommend that you not do that, at least not in this case, because the intro is very much key and critical part of the book. Let's get started. There is a God in whom I believe, yet whose very existence I quite often question openly and entirely. This non-physical God, though invisible and silent, seems on occasion as real as any other aspect of reality. Sometimes I feel a closeness to this undefinable underlying presence, a force that I cannot rationally confirm to any other person, nor at times to myself. To this unseen presence, perhaps within or perhaps without, I feel a perennially enduring connection. Although at times waxing, at times waning, it is a unique form of friendship, longer lasting and more deeply meaningful than any other relationship I have ever had. And while I have several conversations each day with other actual people, my subconscious dialogue between this greater entity and myself is nearly constant, whether I deem it so or not. On a superficial level, we could say that I believe in this underlying entity who does not insist that I believe in him. Almost ambivalent at times, he allows and even facilitates our varied thoughts and manners of operation within this world. It might seem as if he does not even care so much whether or not I believe in him. He seems to prefer endowing and enabling us with unbridled consciousness, thereby allowing and entrusting us to navigate events and conditions correctly, at least within this physical world wherein we humans abide. And when we fail, as it is certain that we will, he is unfailingly resilient in tolerance and absolution. For the flow of our conscious presence in this world is unbroken, unfettered, and unbounded. But beliefs aside, to some extent, my consciousness and each individual's consciousness could be seen as an extension of that greater, more permeating yet formless form of consciousness. For it is not by any act of my own will that the fundamental nature of my own awareness arises. While I exert some control over the direction and subject of my thoughts, neither I nor science can adequately define or explain the underlying nature of consciousness. Consciousness of the type I regularly experience goes far beyond any mechanistic definition that has ever been provided or espoused. In one manner of speaking, a preconscious matrix of a type we can't fully comprehend seemingly prefabricates or predefines some characteristics or parameters of our existence, that internal essence of being or soul. Within this construct, a primordial form of preconsciousness provides the basis by which our type of consciousness may exist. This type of consciousness seemingly arises from, but is inarguably tethered to, the physical world in such a way that we can experience and act upon the material aspect of the universe. This great coupling of consciousness with materiality, life, is a state or commodity highly sought and valued by the eternal essence, a miraculous achievement, a sparkling gem, a brightly shining star. While this God, I believe, revels in and indulges life's individuation and the related formalization of thought, he is also quite accessible for a more intensified and attuned connection, a rather more personal, yet still esoteric, connection. We are, without any effort at all, one with God in many respects. But there are additional states in which this connection between a greater form of consciousness, God, and any one of its discrete entities, a human, for example, is not disdained, disregarded, or broken, but the connection instead becomes heightened, harmonious, intertwined, and enhanced. God, in this light, can be our friend, our constant companion, and we could be his useful and powerful Atman or avatar in this world, if you will. Certainly some will roll their eyes in incredulity at these notions, and I might too, depending upon my mood when hearing of such ideas. But perhaps we might pause to experience, or at least consider, the great joy and sense of calm oneness that may occur within these enhanced or empowered states. Perhaps it's but a fantasy, but are not some fantasies worth indulging? And are not some perceived realities as nearly real, at least to the beholder, as those literally or more formally experienced? On the other hand, perhaps there is, in fact, a conscious force underlying, encompassing, and perhaps predating all reality. Do we know with certainty that there is not? And is it not possible that we are part of, or an extension of, that greater consciousness? Perhaps we are discrete conscious objects derived from a class or construct known as consciousness. Perhaps we're even upon the leading edge of a great and meaningful unfolding in this grand process which we call life. For the moment, perhaps we can put aside our stereotypical notions of God. In doing so, let's set aside our notions that he is perfect according to our own limited definitions of perfect. Let's set aside the idea that he must live up to our own humanly and simplistic notions of perfection. All good, all knowing, all powerful. Our notions regarding perfection are in fact imperfect. In order to be God, God does not have to be any of these things, nor must he fit into any of our limited ideas concerning these overused and overarching superlatives. For the moment, consider all of reality as being more or less of a reflection or emanation of an underlying form of consciousness, which we might call God, along with all that we deem good and bad, perfect and imperfect. And along with these notions, let's set aside the notion that God is unyieldingly static, for the very notion of creation implies change and newness. Perhaps we should also assume that, in some small measure, as seems apparent from observing the undeniable reality in which we live, that we do have some influence on the present moment and upon its outcome in the future, and perhaps even some bearing upon what should be versus perhaps what should not be. Either way, our actions and sentiments as living beings constituted by a conscious God do actually matter. And perhaps we can have an impact in ways beyond what we can currently imagine. On a deeper level, many of our internal conflicts may represent or symbolize the ancient conceptual conflicts which stirred within the primordial. resolving some of life's conflicts or problems in a favorable manner certainly may have some great impact upon us individually. But perhaps in resolving deeper and greater issues, there is even some impact upon those aged shared conflicts on a much higher yet more fundamental level. Realize, most importantly, it is not without purpose that we exist, and our actions can clearly change our own localized conditions somewhat dramatically. In a more substantial way, we each contribute to the whole, where the net effects of our collective actions do have great and considerable impacts upon the course of both physical and metaphysical outcomes.